Be prepared to be uncomfortable all the time. Don't get bitter, get better. Matt, you have always dominated cricket.
So for all the heartbreaks you've given India, I should blame your brother.
100%. You can be a hero and a villain and a hero and a villain all in the same act. That's the formula for success. Weight of expectation around your performance. And we were down about 14 metres and I had this enormous tiger shark. Ruthless.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Drawing inspiration from a champion is very similar to starting up as a company. We want to understand what were your early days like? What was the mindset? How did cricket come into your life? And then how did you make it a passion to get to the highest levels? So,
I think if you really want to get to the nitty-gritty of an unwind, you have to actually go right back to your early childhood. So those things that through your formative years shape, define, refine, and just dream, ready to set and go. Sort of just understanding what your purpose is, what's your why-ness around life. And so for me as a country boy, the only thing I was interested in doing was to continue my family legacy on the property, which was a third generation family farm growing peanuts.
oh wow.
And so our backyard was a 10-acre house block, and we had, with an industrial grader, Dad graded out part of that, put nets around it. My 5-year-old brother, every day of our life, bar none, we were out the back playing cricket until Mum was yelling at us to come in and have dinner. And that, in a very simple way, it wasn't anyone else's game. It was just our game. We didn't even see cricket. I couldn't watch cricket. The television was a free-to-air product that initially was ABC, which went to the whole of Australia. And then it got moved to a free-to-air platform, which in the country we didn't have. So the only way I consumed the game was actually to sneak up into the shed in the middle of the night and listen to the great Ashes series played out on Test Match Special live on our radio, which we had on our middle tractor.
So you started visualization pretty early.
And that's the principle.
Yeah.
It's what is your vision and how are you and do you have a point of difference? And so for me, it was a very natural point of difference because it was my game. Yeah. It was our game. It was a country game. It was rustic. It was rural. It could be gully cricket. It could be backyard cricket. Every kid, girl or boy, has a certain thing that they have. They possess a certain talent or a uniqueness. Might be subtleties of wrist. Might be just quickness of reading the ball. Whatever that is. So for me, it was basically I was a country boy that loved so many sports: tennis, golf, hunting, fishing, surfing. It just all of those things were just my backyard. And they became a very natural part of who I formed as an athlete.
So you and your brother used to play cricket for hours, and you'd keep batting, he'd keep
you
bowling?
You should blame him, actually. Don't blame me, okay? Blame him because.
So for all the heartbreaks you've given India, I should blame your brother.
100%. Yeah, just let me go a little bit. But in all seriousness, he went on to become. He did his business degree in sports and rec. So he became a physical education teacher. And so he was the first guy to introduce to me what was otherwise a middle distance athlete sport to a power sport. So all of a sudden I stopped running 1500s and I started running 20 metres quick. And I started doing weights accordingly. So as a power lifter, that transformed to being a power player. And that hadn't been done. And that was my point of difference.
That's amazing.
So I'd come to a training set and everyone's doing laps and I'm running, sprints and powerlifting.
That's great. And that gave you that kind of power to be able to hit those long sixes.
Well, in those days, it wasn't done.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even thought of. In fact, it was highly criticised, and that's another principle. Be prepared to be uncomfortable all the time if you want to be better. The comfort route is great if you want to cuddle up and relax, but you can do that after your career. You know, during my career, I always felt like I was being pushed, or I was pushing myself. I don't know, maybe I was a lunatic.
Yeah.
You know, but the fact is that I was very, very comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that principle of breaking something when it didn't need to be broke was something that always, you know, had in the top of mind. If it started to feel too comfortable, okay, what's next? Because your competitors are working you out all the time.
True. So, Matthew, in your early days, did you have any professional coaching, or it was just majority of your time was playing in the backyard with your brothers and you just honed your skills over a period of time?
Yeah, so sort of put the clock on fast forward. So now I'm at university, I'm studying a business degree, my brother's now out teaching, we're living together, I'm now playing for Queensland, but sporadically. I've had 2 or 3 club seasons of playing first grade club cricket in Brisbane, and I'm dominating the landscape. So I've now been picked for Queensland, and now I'm in a professional setup. Everything about that professional setup is going against the grain of what I believe needs to happen within the competitive game of cricket. So I'm agitating for change. And my brother's there as my coach, mentor, physical trainer, and we're all seeing the game so different to first class cricket now. And so that copped quite a lot of criticism. You know, it was like, Hayden's a front dogger. Oh, he's way too big. How could he possibly? Because all of the, you know, icons of the game,
It was pretty
Sonny
short
G, AB, you name, mostly short people. You know, short and fast. And so it kind of went against the grain of that, but I was okay with that, and so too was my brother. You know, we had the courage to kind of like stick at it. And of course, the one thing that covers all evils is success. You know, so the team was having great success. Personally, I was doing very well. Yeah. And so higher honours became sort of the next question.
Great. Before we move on to your cricketing career, with regards to your early life, my last question would be around, when did you know that you wanted to take up cricket as a career and you wanted to play cricket full time and just dedicate your life, at least the next few years, to cricket?
I'll never forget the moment. And it was a moment of bittersweet, actually, like most careers that merge and shift. You know, so my career initially was to study. I wasn't an overly great student, but I had a great work ethic. You know, so that allowed me to get into university and allowed me to get partway through a business degree. And I'll never forget the conversation that I had with my Dean of Faculty, a gentleman called Sumong Wong. And Sumong was Dean of Marketing. And I went to him at the end of the year after getting a failed result, and I asked him what the problem was. And he says, look, you did great in your final exam, but you didn't attend the tutorials. I said, what are you talking about? Like, we negotiated back in February, because we have a February kind of Christmas university career. We negotiated back in February around the tutorials being on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night only. That was the only offering back in the days, not flexible uni programs. And you said that because I was playing for Queensland, it was okay. No recollection, right? So
I've realised one thing, always take things in writing.
Oh, I should have, most definitely, yeah. Anyways, he said, look, that was the 50% of the tutorial component you didn't attend, so I have to fail you. So I can remember walking out of university to a payphone and reverse charging the calls to mum and dad, and knowing how much they've sacrificed as well. Mum's an educator. She's got a letters in music and speech and drama.
Wow.
And she's a great teacher. I really felt like that was going to hurt them when I said, at that moment, I'm out. I just can't do this anymore, you know. I can't have my head in two places, being, you know, part of a university system and in cricket.
Yeah.
And the reaction I got was, what took you so long?
That's
right?
amazing, right? You need that from parents. You need that from key people that support you in your life.
100%. Just that knowingness that, and as they'll speak, they'll go, Matt, you know, you have always dominated cricket. And I was like, no, you know, you don't see it in your head as a struggling kid, right? Anyway, so that was the very moment. Bad news from a university perspective, great news from a mum and dad, and then the conviction to I was just ready. I was, you know, at that stage I was 21, you know, 22. You know, I'd started my journey into professional sport, even in a semi-professional culture at the time, which is what it was. And I was just ready to take flight.
So that actually brings me to my next question, because, you know, everybody knows about your successful career, the 2 World Cups that you've been a part of, the winning World Cups. You know, what's not spoken so much, and I would love to kind of understand that and draw some inspiration, because it can take, it's a hustle for anybody that's starting off in life before they hit success, for a company. You know, you debuted in 93, 94, and then you were, I think, picked again in 96, 97, but it took you 6-7 years to actually make it as a permanent in the Australian team, right? 99, 2000 is when you came back. It was only in 2001 that you actually, you know, like, it was against India that you scored the 500 plus runs, and you literally dominated that entire series, and you know, that's when you arrived. But it took you a while, and it can, you know, it can break a lot of individuals down, but you kept going. You were performing phenomenally in first class cricket. Walk me through that journey. You know, how did you keep yourself grounded for those 7 years, motivated, and knew that you're going to make it big and you're going to come back and become the Matthew Hayden that you are today? Did you think about that at that point, saying, I'm going to achieve greatness and I'm going to keep going?
Well, there's a lot to unpack in that 7 years, I must admit. Even when you remind me of the 2001 series, we lost that series. It wasn't a winning series. And so any athlete will tell you that the most important thing and the reason why you stay in a team is because you win. And we didn't. You know, so there's always in sport, it's like a melodrama. You can be a hero and a villain, and a hero and a villain all in the same act. Yeah. And so you have to get used to that. And you used a very important word. It was a mantra of mine before I took strike every ball of my career. Every ball of my career. And that was the word ground. It's such a powerful word because it means that the highs aren't too high and the lows aren't so significant that you become buried by the thought of failure. Yeah. You're going to fail as a startup. You're going to fail more often than you're going to win. It's those that have the courage to find a way to continue on the journey. And that's not easy. And I tell you what, you need a lot of luck. Like, I've been involved in several startups in my life, and there have been times when all it comes down to is just a shift of luck as to whether they're successful or not. And a sporting career is absolutely no different. So the role of luck is significant. Coming to those 7 years though, the most important piece of advice that I got was it was an individual called Wayne Bennett. He's a football coach, well-renowned rugby league football coach. And Wayne Bennett told me one day when he called me in just to have breakfast with him after I'd been dropped, I think for the second time, he asked a very specific question which said, why are you such a champion at Queensland and so horrible for Australia? So it was a pretty confronting question because I'd only played...
It was that direct?
It was that direct.
Yeah.
Australians are direct. It's part of our charm, if you like. But I thought, gee, that's a great question. So that's my other lesson, ask good questions to yourself as well. But the answer to that question, and I didn't have, other than, I'm trying my best to find a way, like there seems to be some factions that are going against me. And his advice was, don't get bitter, get better.
Oh, that's actually a very, very good advice.
So what that meant is that I was able to transform any negative thoughts that I'd have around what environment that I was working in. And it gave me a mindset where every day was about improvement.
Yeah.
So breaking down each day and going, okay, well, that was that day. Now this day, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And I just found it was like a springboard. It was like a trampoline to my success, because no matter if I had a great day, I'd trampoline off that to have a better day the next day. So it was a great mindset shift. And look, the other thing is, and I take this for granted, I had a fantastic family. And my family was just, I never ever felt like dad or mum went, you should do better, or there was just this great balance at home. And all they wanted for me to do is to be my best. There wasn't the pressure of, well, why did you do that? Or, it wasn't an examination. It wasn't an inside word. It was just coming home, and life at home was so neutral and balanced and free, and all the things that my childhood represented.
And I think one of the things that we've seen from all champions is they keep knocking on the door, till it opens up. And then when you get the opportunity, you grab it with two hands, right? So you kept, like, your performances in first class cricket were phenomenal. You were doing really well. You kept going at it. You didn't give up. You kept knocking the door. And then when you got the opportunity, you just didn't look back. In the golden era, you were the golden boy of Australian cricket. So,
well, when you think about, again, what I just said about the champion mindset, it's just never taking for granted anything. So, for me, with that springboard mentality, I just kept breaking records. It seemed like it was an inevitability. But my mindset was also focused on, I remember doing a press conference ahead of my debut game, and I asked the press back a question, and it was probably a bit stupid, really, because they really took it and ran with it. But I said, has anyone made 200 on debut?
yeah.
And you could sort of see the press like looking around going, who is this arrogant kid,
Yeah.
I don't even know you. But it wasn't so much, it was a question for me.
Yeah.
It sort of like fell out of my mouth,
Correct.
if you know what I mean. Because
Yeah.
I felt like at that time, what was stopping me? I was scoring hundreds for fun in first grade cricket. And I felt like I needed to be something, for me, it was something greater than what had been done before.
And you spoke about records, right? 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. 5 consecutive years you scored more than 1,000 runs. You were just you were a run scoring machine at that point, right? How did you feel at that point? Like, did you feel like this is all the hard work that I've put in that's now paying off, and it kind of, was that a little bit of weight that was lifted off your chest, or you just felt motivated and more hungry to keep going?
Yeah, well, it was my job. At the end of the day, I was just doing my job, ultimately. And I was doing it in a way that I knew that was going to be successful. And all of that work had been done. Like if I drop this bottle, it's going to fall.
Yeah.
It's just pure physics.
Yeah.
And we talk about it often in commentary as well. It's like we always use the word momentum. It probably drives you nuts, but it's such a key word, because all the effort is actually at the start of trying to get something to go. It's like, and then once it's going, it's done. So for mine, I was just on that bus, and nothing was going to stop me at that stage. It was, because the other thing is, what brought me back is the word ground. It didn't matter if I did badly or if I did well. It was like, this is the way it is. And my other key word was fight. Which you can imagine. because I love to fight.
Yeah.
It's always been in my DNA to, if there's something that, if you say to me, you can't do something, good luck. You know, that's I guess my strength in many ways. It's to make something happen and follow the momentum, but at the same time be grounded in doing it.
So I think one thing that I take away from this conversation is that keep yourself going constantly, keep performing, keep practicing constantly, have that discipline, because it becomes a part of your subconscious mind and your subconscious personality.
Yeah.
And then you'll just perform. It just flows.
Consistent, applied effort over time. That's it. That's the formula for success. You have to see it though first. You have to have a very clear picture. If you're a startup there, what are you actually, what's your point of difference? I'll give you an example, right? A mate of mine was sitting around the barbecue one day and we'd had a couple of red wines and nice big meal, and we're starting now to talk smack as mates do. So we're trying to catch out those people that come to your house with a cheap bottle of wine and offer it as if it's something that's fantastic. So we're racking our brains thinking about this. We thought this is a great idea for an app, right? So all you do is just take a photo of the wine label. It comes up the vintage, it comes up the price point, you know, the ratings, the whole lot.
Yeah.
Thought this is genius. Went to actually explore it. There was about 500 wine apps. So it was a case of being way too late on a property which I'm sure would be huge. But what is your point of difference? What is your competition? You know, for me, I have to work out who the hell I'm playing against in cricket.
True.
And once I work out that, like Harbhajan Singh, for example, in 2001, I had 7 years, guys, of practicing a sweep shot. And then when I arrived in India, the first game I played against Harbhajan Singh, before the test match, I didn't let him see the fact that I've got a sweep shot. I had to take abuse from Harbhajan because he was saying, mate, I'm going to have so much fun with you at one caddy. So I just defended, he got me out.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, you've got a cyclone waiting for you at one caddy. So it's about timing of when you put things forward as well. But mostly consistent applied effort over time. And you've got to be thinking, be careful about what you think about as well, because thinking is actually your reality. It's amazing how quickly, if you think something, good or bad, how quickly it manifests in your life.
True.
So when you're thinking correctly, you're surrounding yourself with great champions. I mean, I had warriors in my team.
Yeah.
And I had some of the great warriors of all time. Steve Waugh, Alan Border, Ian Healy, David Boone, Merv Hughes. I mean, these guys, they carried weight globally, but they were hungry. They were sick of losing in their era.
Yeah.
And they were bringing some stuff to the table in my era that was like, I need a bit of that. That's a good recipe for success.
So moving to the golden era, you know, incredible team. You all won so many things. You all were dominating world cricket. By far one of the best teams that's ever existed, and arguably so. Walk me through the winning mentality you all had. You know, amazing players, but whenever the occasion got big, you all always came up on top. So what was the thought process? Was there some form of training you all went through, or was there some kind of, you know, was it the leadership? How were you all so mentally tough?
Look, it was all of those things. It was great leadership. We can talk on that in a moment. It was that most of those individuals that you seemed or deemed to be great had their own unique preparation to arrive at that Australian cricket team. As I said, it was much harder to get out of the team than into the team. You know, so once you're actually in that team, you had this weight of expectation around your performance. Now that is held together by great leadership. And they've been, under the 5 captains that I've played, they've all been very similar. They've all had great work ethics. They've all had common touch, blue collar workers, in essence. and they had this great capacity to never ask you to do anything that they wouldn't already be doing themselves. You know, so when you're bought into that culture, it was almost impossible to lose because the sum of all parts was going in one direction. You know, see, Australia is not a tribal country. We're a mixed country. I mean, who even is Australia? We're not even sure. Greek, Italian, Pakistan, Indian. You know, there's 1 million expats, Indian expats that live in Australia. Of 25 million people, 1 million is actually you guys. So now we're starting to see, when I go to club cricket, I'm starting to see a Singh play, you know, as good as anyone in the country. So we've got this great eclectic mix of people from around the world that actually have to be tough just to get to Australia. It's so far away. So that's our backgrounds, you know, cultural backgrounds. And we don't have factions. Like we might not like New South Wales just competitively might not like Queensland. But we're the one people. And so when that one person gets picked into a squad of say 15, it's all pulling in the one direction. And because we're so egalitarian, it means that there's not one person even the captain is not better than the rest of the group. If the captain needs to be pulled in line, he will be pulled in line by the group. That's simple. Never has that happened, but that's the reality of it. You know, so the sum of all parts makes that whole era just great. They were great individually, talking about their individual preparations. Like, for example, Damien Martin. Didn't play for Australia until, well, played early like me, 21, 22, but didn't really make it until he was, say, 28, 29. You know, Michael Hussey a little bit later, a bit the same. Justin Langer a bit the same. Adam Gilchrist a bit the same, because guess what? They had to beat guys in, like an Ian Healy, for example, who was a generationally fabulous wicketkeeper. So everyone was fighting so hard at first-class cricket to be brilliant. And not just averaging 30, the culture demanded that you were averaging mid-50s. And if you wanted to play for Australia, you had to be mid-60s. Yeah. So there was this kind of platform springboarding you into greatness just purely on the numbers alone. You had to be ruthless. And these guys, they all were. They were, like thinking about Glenn McGrath, the first time he rocked up in first-class cricket, he was living in a caravan and his trousers were like that. They're up on his legs. AB was inviting him to bring down his trousers. So there was just, and they all had great common touch.
I also felt somewhere that all of you all believed at all points that you all were going to win. You all were so good. The thought process was always that we're going to win, we're going to step out, and we're going to win 100 out of 100 times.
See, former generations may criticise the current or my generation's batting because it would go, guys, these guys could win doing anything because they had the great Glenn McGrath, the great Shane Warne, the great Jason Gillespie, the great Brett Lee, and even the backups, the great Michael Kaswich, you know, just goes on and on and on, right? So, and they would be right because they were generationally, like you would argue that in particular that McGrath and Warne were generationally great players, but I would say across the eras of the game, they would sit comfortably in anyone's World 11 side. And we had 3 or 4 of those players. You know, you get out of Gilchrist into that equation, a Steve Water that equation, a Mark Water that equation. You just look down at the list and you just went, how are we beatable? Like when we rocked up to the World Cup in 2003, there was never a doubt that we were not going to win the World Cup. We just had, I can imagine we would have been like India in this last World Cup.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, whomever we line up against, let's just go man for man. Is that player, or have someone else got another team that's got a better player than us? Yeah. And the answer was no. So there's this great confidence.
We had an incredible Indian team as well that time, right? We had some fantastic batsmen, some really, really good, consistent bowlers. But the one team that kind of gave them a tough run for their money or really kind of troubled them, and like I said before, gave us a lot of heartbreaks, especially in big tournaments, was Australia. And it was a very, very tough side to beat when it was a final or a semi-final. Australia always came up on top because of that winning mentality and just, I think, rock star performances all throughout, a consistent team overall.
Yeah, look, I probably built up the element of that rock star and that greatness of that team, because on the day it doesn't really matter. You've still got to be able to put it together.
Yeah.
So jumping into the pond of the mindset of the champion through that era.
Yeah.
And it's often a cliche in sport. It's just believing in that process. Do you believe in your product? Yeah. So you can talk about that on a macro level, but on a micro level, you have to know that you've got your stuff together. Yeah. And is it ahead of the game? You know, so every World Cup that I certainly played in, I had a new shot that I'd been working on. I'll give you an example. 2007, in the West Indies, Sean Pollock's name came up in our team meeting, and I said, guys, you're wasting your time. I'm telling you, let's move on to the next player, because I'm going to absolutely own him tomorrow. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why is because I developed a cut shot, and I knew that Sean Pollock was going to come wide of me and keep me out of play.
Yeah.
So the very first ball, second ball he bowled, outside off stump, hammering it through cover point. I looked at Polly and his eyes started to roll. And I thought, the very next ball he's going to come searching at me again, and I put it for six over mid-wicket. And it was just like that. Like it was a planning. It was actually horrible because we're actually planning to annihilate you in some way.
But I think, so I draw huge inspiration and kind of parallels from a couple of points you just made. And I tell my team that as well. Keep at the process. Keep giving your best every single day. We know what our targets are. We know where we want to get. But if you keep doing that on a daily basis, you keep putting in the effort. And you know, when you draw that comparison to a batsman, it's play each ball and give it your 100%, right? Yeah. And that will take you to what you want to achieve, and the victory that you kind of manifest or you dream of having, it'll come into reality if you keep doing the basics right every single day.
Yeah, so there's the basics and some, meaning that a champion will look at the basics and just go, that is an absolute given. You know, so in a team, what we were looking for is, what is your uniqueness? Like what's Haydos going to do? Yeah. And I'll give you an example anecdotally of how this happened. Ahead of the World Cup in 2007, we had a short tour to New Zealand, and John Buchanan came to me and said, Haydos, you're not in my starting 11 for the World Cup. And I said to him, why? Like, what's the issue? He says, you're not batting deep enough. I said, Buck, bro, you don't need me to bat deep. You need to bat 15 overs of Hayden and Gilchrist the way that our mindsets were at the time, because we're aiming at 300. Yeah. Something that had never been done before in one-day cricket. And some. I'm handing you the heart of the opposition if we bat 15 overs. If you don't want me to keep going to 50 overs, I mean, it may happen, but you've got Ponting, you've got Martin, you've got Simons, you've got Clark, you've got Hussey. But, like, that's my point of difference. Yeah. So you might not pick me. It'll be a great shame. So that day I got 180, the highest score for Australia in a one-dayer. Yeah. But that's not really the point. The point is that my vision, so your staff's vision, is all that process plus the X factor.
I agree.
So that you can understand how that you can stay ahead of the game, because your competitors are out there right now just eyeballing your organisation. Correct. And they're thinking about what you don't have, aren't they? plotting your downfall.
Yeah.
But it's magnificent to answer the call if your staff or working as a leader with an organisation to go, guys, we got it. We've got all of this covered.
That's fantastic. And that's, I think, the ownership at each individual's level that just makes a team very, very successful. That brings me to my next question in terms of, I'm a big believer that the core of success is a very, very strong culture. So if as a leader, if I am able to set up a really good culture, everybody will align to a common vision, and then we'll be able to move towards a common goal. Can you tell me a little bit about the culture in the Australian team from, say, 2000 to 2010? What is the culture like within the Australian team?
So it's kind of a D.A.D theory. Define, align, design.
Wow. It's the first time I've heard that.
So those three very simple principles. Firstly, you have to understand how your staff, how people are going to align. Well, in Australia's case, it was very simple. We had an icon of the baggy green. See, that is a very powerful thing in world sport. But for Australian, like I've got goosebumps just even thinking about that word, because I feel there is so much that gets kind of embodied in that one simple principle of the icon of the baggy green. It's the same hat that Don Bradman wore. It's the same hat that people wore post, pre-war depressions. It kept people believing in how it is that they were going to perform. So just that alone is such a significant part of the Australian cricket team. So there's an alignment already there. So the define part is, how do you go across generations? Like, how are we different to Alan Border's era or Bob Simpson's era? Or just keep going back. What is our uniqueness? And how do you take that on board? And so that's the design part. And sticking to that uniqueness of your generation, whatever that is. Like now, I would imagine, not being in the change rooms, it's still around power hitting. Like Travis Head has blown up the IPL with Abhishek Sharma because they've got a new way of doing things.
Yeah.
They're like, guys, just check this out. Bang, we're going to get 277.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're sitting in a dressing room right now and you're at the IPL, you're going, I'm not sure I really want to meet Sunrisers Hyderabad.
Yeah.
Because they've changed the game. They've changed the paradigm of the new product. See, they're the sort of players that you need to be. You can't serve up the same stuff and expect different results. That's the definition of being an idiot. So you've got to find new ways of doing things. And that is all in that design process. So that just hasn't fallen into the laps of Travis Head.
Yeah.
Or previously a David Warner. I mean, I can see a lot of what David does in what I did. And now he's just got better at it. And now Travis Head is like taking that to another level as well. And young Fraser McGurk has obviously gone, geez, I like a bit of this. So, it keeps moving on is the point. And the personnel keep moving on, but the alignment piece is always there.
I love that D.A.D theory, something that we can take back and look to kind of apply. Another very important element of doing really well, whether it's sport or whether it's work at any organization, is teamwork. Some of the best partnerships you've had, especially your partnership with Justin Langer up top, over 100 innings, more than 5,500 plus runs, probably the second highest in terms of runs around the world. Can you tell me a little bit about how important teamwork is, partnerships are, some of the best partnerships you've had, and how do two individuals align towards a common goal and achieve that together? What can we learn from that?
Of all the things that I love in my life, I love building partnerships. It's something that you're either trying to achieve or you do achieve. You know, and why I say that is that you've got to have an active, conscious position to be able to allow you to see all the good and all the bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's a true marriage. In a marriage, you just don't have sunshine every day. It rains, it's windy, it's sunny, it's hot, it's too hot sometimes. It's the whole gamut. So with JL, you know, he and I aligned on a very spiritual front first, both as Christians, but also as people that just believe in a deeper sense of spirituality.
Yeah.
And our connectedness to our families, our connectedness to our country, our connectedness to the things that we love, like coffee and food and wine and a great big cigar every now and again. Those things, you know, they held us together as a family. And we also believed in setting the tone. Like you're talking about the baggy green, you're talking about the engine room of the baggy green. So I have to bring in my little mate Ricky Ponting here as well, because the 1, 2 and 3 is what they call the engine room of the Australian cricket team. The 4, 5 and 6, they're the interior decorators. So they come in and make the room look all pretty when it's already been built. So those two things are very separate in the group, and they talk differently. They have different goals, different dreams, they have different assets, different skill sets, but they combine because they know each other so well. There's such a deep, intimate relationship with Ricky, myself, and JL. They truly are my brothers. And that will always be the case. You know, we've seen some of the passings of our brothers more recently in Warnie and Simo's anniversary just a few days back. But together we all find a way to just stay together, even though there's no baggy greens getting put on heads anymore.
That's great to hear. I'd move into some quick questions. I'd love these answers. Very curious to hear your thoughts around that. Toughest opponent you've faced as a team?
Or opponent as a team, probably India. In India.
India. And
Yeah.
the toughest batsman that existed in the era, and you're like, this one's a tough one, we've got to get him out quickly.
Brian Lara. That boy was ruthless. For such a sort of calm, sort of chilled dude, like he had fire.
Yeah, you scored 380 and then he had that fire saying, I'm going to come in and I'm going to break that because Haydos just broke my record. So.
Yeah, he wanted it. Yeah, absolutely. We used to have a no sledge policy with Brian Lara because we knew that if you did get under his skin.
You tried that.
I tried. I've tried it many times. In fact, I remember we were having a laugh about it the other day together because we were commentating, and he came out at Antigua where they beat us. Someone got a big 100, 200 maybe. But Steve Ward said no sledging, so I couldn't help myself. He walked directly past me at gully, and I said, Brian, are you walking today? Because I was only just like throwing him a bit of a hook, really. Bang! Straight away, he's following me off to the outfield, and Tugger's like looking at me going, man, what part of don't sledge don't you understand here, you know? Anyway, shame on me. He got a big score and they won.
Toughest bowler you faced?
Curtly Ambrose.
And I think Ambrose, Harbhajan Singh, Makaya Intini.
Nakini knocked me over quite a lot, yeah. Ambrose was just something else, though. Ambrose and Glenn McGrath were the two hardest I faced.
That's great. There's a lot to Matthew Hayden outside of cricket as well. You've written 2 books on cooking and your recipes, and it's pretty evident your love for food and how much you love cooking, and you find it therapeutic, meditational as well.
Yeah.
Also, you're a surfer. You love surfing. I've got the opportunity to know you a little bit, and I understand you're a deeply spiritual person as well. Would love to know about Matthew Hayden outside of cricket.
Yeah, look, it's interesting because so much of our lives are documented within cricket, and I would imagine that people would go, well, that's Matthew Hayden. But actually, you know, at 52, when you consider my life before cricket and now after cricket, as a broadcaster and businessman, there's just so much that I, you know, relish and love. To coin a phrase, cricket kind of got in the way of a good tour. And when I say that, I say it with great respect to cricket, but it connected me to the things that I first connected with my life. So growing food with my grandma, or just in our property overall, and the harvest process. Then, you know, into family life. You know, so when I travel to India, it's about coming home. I want to taste mummy's dal. And I want to also, you know, understand more about the spiritual connect of people in whatever country I'm in, what their religion is, what their daily routines are. Just, I find that stuff so fascinating, and makes me feel so deeply connected. You know, I can vividly remember my first moments here in India, you know, at Chapak Stadium, you know, connected into the old Madras Cricket Club, feeling the love of cricket in Chennai, having that then being embraced, you know, through the years of playing there, but just being embraced, full stop. Just a remarkable spiritual connect. Yeah. Not just with Chennai, all over India. I've always felt like there's been, I think you're the country of great philosophers. And so for me to be able to talk around my personal journey, experiences, connect with people here in India and all over the world, I feel so blessed. So yeah, there's a lot of my life beyond the playing field, which I just, you know, love.
Tell me a little more about your love for food and cooking, and I think you love cooking with your daughter as well.
Yeah.
Please, I would love to hear more, you know, it
Well,
keeps you going.
Firstly, never trust a skinny chef. I love food. I mean, firstly, food is a fuel. I mean, running around, you know, my whole life, still running around. It provides fuel. So you don't put, you know, diesel in an unleaded petrol car. You know, so the expectation is to fuel your body with great stuff and to have an intimate knowledge of what that looks like from ground. Because I love, like right now I've got potatoes growing, which I planted before I came at the IPL, and they'll be ready, you know, basically in another month's time. And I understand then from that potato, having given it love, respect, you know, making sure it's looked after, that it will in return look after me. And that's the spiritual connect with everything, animal or plant. So that nurturing process is something I really enjoy. But yeah, the food part of it is also about connecting into a region. I find the food particularly interesting here in India because a lot of it is very locally sourced, homegrown, fresh produce, seasonal produce, an important element. You know, I really believe in lack of food miles. You know, so there's no point in eating a mango if it's been grown in, you know, Australia, for example. Yeah. It's here, Alfonso mango.
Correct.
It is the season, and we are now eating that. And if we're not eating it, we're preserving it. You know, so the chutneys and the influences of being able to have longevity in food here are also fascinating. Something that my grandma taught. We'd make jams together, locally sourced from our backyard, and then we'd eat those all the way through the season. So that it's not a thriftiness, but it's like just making things stretch, and that's an important part of life. You know, if you have money in your hand, money will go from this hand to this hand. But if you can keep a jam or a tomato or a mango and you can keep it in your hand for as long as you can and then share that to other people, it goes so much further. So I love that element to it as well.
Oh, I love this conversation. I'll actually take back the story that you said about the potatoes, giving it love and it'll give you love. I can draw inspirations, and it's about, you know, at work, that's the culture you build. You you take care of your people. You give them what they need. You give them love. You give them support. You give them the guidance. You give them the coaching. Take care of them professionally, financially, personally. And it will always come back to you 100%. In terms of the growth that and the fuel that it'll kind of give 100%. To your company in growing up. So I'll take that back. I love that actually. You're a surfer. You love surfing. I know about the story. We were chatting that you scored this big 100 in South Africa. It came pouring down and you went surfing. So tell us a little more about your love for surfing, and do you find that really relaxing and binging more energy into your body as well?
Yeah, so the water, I'm Scorpio by star sign, but I should have been Pisces. I should have been, some sort of star sign that involves the water, because that to me is my life. Even though I grew up in regional country Australia, the ocean has always been a great source of energy.
Yeah.
I can safely say that if I can sit here as I am now and look over water, it makes me feel better, makes me feel relaxed. But even better is being in it, on it, or around it. So if there's waves, that's something that I love to do with my kids. All of our kids, we've got 3 children, Gracie, Joshy and Tom, they all surf. They all fish. So I've taught them all, through our lives to be able to collect food, which I think is it's a great skill, but it's also a great spiritual food as well, because you have to understand something if you're going to collect it. It's not just about rocking up and going, cool, there it is. So there's a great and profound wisdom of the ocean. I mean, even when you think of tides, I find that fascinating. So this thing called the moon sits above us and controls water flow.
Yeah.
And not just a little bit. It controls everything. So can you imagine that in our bodies? We're 96% or more water. So there's no question that the moon has an effect on us as it does on this profound space that you see, as the ocean. So I just think it's a critical element of my life. It's where I hunt, gather, enjoy recreationally. I've been in extreme life-threatening situations. Just recently I was spear diving with my son, and we were down about 14 metres, and I had this enormous tiger shark come straight up beside me. He gave it this one, and I went, oh, please don't give it this one. But I also feel that because I was so relaxed and my son was so relaxed, that huge animal was also chilled. So there's a great capacity to meditate in that environment, a breathless environment, where every instinct is telling you that you must breathe. And when you've got now a life-threatening situation, you're even more inclined to breathe and panic. But to be able to let a breath fade and a conscious thought arrive and a stillness of thought, everyone in life can champion that idea, no matter what. If it's a heated discussion, if it's something that's gone wrong in business, if it's a moment of grief or sorrow, to have that capacity to control breath and to move into a space of freedom, which is why I used to love meditating on the wicket at the start of play. I would see everything the day before that had happened. I knew every part of the ground. Sight screens, the wind movement, the flags, the noises without the crowd, everything, so that in a moment of silence, I could own that moment and be a part of that moment. Feel like with my bare feet, to be engaged in a surface that's been tended to by a whole bunch of people, that are ground staff. It's such a great feeling. So those things, the ocean connects me to life for sure.
This is incredibly profound wisdom. I'm a deeply spiritual guy. Morning routines are an hour to 2 hours of meditation, connecting with nature, It's the sun, the wind, the ocean, the earth.
Bombarding your senses.
It's calming myself down, breathing, being, just working on awareness, mindfulness, but everything that you said, it kind of gave me goosebumps because there's just so much wisdom, and especially the incident that you gave about, right? It's keeping yourself calm in those situations can actually help you overcome and conquer those. So thank you. This has probably been like the best 20 minutes of conversation I've had this year, and there's just a lot of learning from that. We'd move into our next section, which is called On the Spot, and I'm going to ask you some quick questions, and just come back with whatever comes to your mind first. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
One word to describe your batting style.
Ruthless.
Favorite cricket ground to play at?
Melbourne Cricket Ground on Boxing Day. I'll give you a day and a ground.
I've seen you batting on Boxing Day.
Extraordinary. 90,000 people. Unbelievable.
Favorite cricketing memory off the field?
Well, any of the World Cup celebration wins. Probably the Barbados victory, Sri Lanka. That was almost a perfect game. Oh, sorry, in 2007. Sri Lanka, yeah. That was an extraordinary win.
You scored how much? 600 plus runs in that
It was,
series?
but it was also the way that Gilly arrived at that final.
Yeah.
Because he'd been missing pretty much for the whole of the World Cup. And he batted with that squash ball or golf ball in his glove. We were all thinking, how's this going to go?
Yeah.
He just smashed them.
Incredible. If you could play alongside any cricketing legend from the past, who would it be?
Viv Richards.
Viv Richards. That would be, I would love to see that partnership.
Oh, I would love to have batted with the great Viv.
Great. Favorite cuisine to cook at home?
Oh, I've got a few. Indian probably, because it's special. We have a weekly special Indian meal.
Is it? What do you cook normally?
I have a bunch of different curries that I love to cook. Probably my favourite and most simple, because we have lots of chickens, is a very simple onion and tomato gravy with eggs. So an egg masala.
Great. Toughest bowler you've ever faced?
Curtly Ambrose.
Favorite travel destination?
I love New Zealand. I don't want to tell them that, but it's a great, wine, fishing, outdoor life. Just
beauty.
It's just a beautiful country.
Yeah. One item you always carry in your cricket bag?
A dear friend of mine who's a surfer, his mum used to make white towels and just had a little M on them. And I always used to carry those in my bag so that when I'd bat with them, I'd have her and I'd also have this, as a function.
That's great. Favorite Indian dish besides dal?
There's nothing better than a beautiful gosht gravy curry, especially from that sort of Gujarati side.
Oh, is it? You must come home someday for Gujarati dal.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any three people, living or dead, who would they be?
Yeah, it's a tough question, this, because do you theme it? Is it a music theme? Is it a food theme? Is it a cricket theme? Any of the great spiritual leaders, can you imagine the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela? I've had the privilege of meeting Mandela a few times, and any of those great humanitarian warriors that have the ultimate guiding principles to life, without any fluff around it, would be such an honour.
Great answer. Best cricketing advice you've ever received?
Don't get bitter, get better.
I love that one. Love that one. That one and the D.A.D philosophy are the two things I'm going to walk away with. Favorite cricket format? Test, ODI, T20?
Test.
Test. Great. Favorite cricket commentator?
Ian Bishop.
Most challenging opponent you've ever faced on the field?
Shoaib Akhtar was the most fun.
Great. Favorite cricket movie or documentary?
Cricket movie or documentary? There was a great one on Bradman and his exploits, which have always said, and there hasn't been a lot of great cricket movies.
Yeah.
Really, like when you think of that genre, when you think of American sport, you could name 20 movies that have fantastic connotations, but cricket, it's just never really, I don't know whether it hasn't resourced it the same or story told the same, but yeah, I'd love to see a great cricket movie.
Great. I'm incredibly grateful that I've had this opportunity to have this chat with you. I feel very blessed and honored of getting this opportunity in life. Thank you, Matthew Hayden. I've learned so much today, and it's a great inspiration for me. There's a lot that I'm going to take back from this conversation.
Thank you. I've also drawn inspiration from your company as well. I mean, just a brand alone, dream, set, go. What a great connotation for life.
Thank you. It's been an absolute honor.
Good man. Thank you.
Thank you.